Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure you're like, where's Sandra? We don't see her, but we hear her. Unfortunately, right now, I'm having issues with StreamYard where you cannot see me. But on behalf of the board of the C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz Foundation, as well as Medi-Helpz, I'm here to thank you very much for either tuning in this evening or watching it later and having questions. And if you do, and that's the case, please know that you can reach out to me, send me an email. I'll do my best in being able to actually answer your questions. I do want to this evening introduce Dr. Theresa Flint Rodgers. She is she's a retiree right now enjoying life. But prior to her enjoying life, she was a pediatric nurse practitioner at the Children's Hospital. And with it being summertime and summertime coming up, there are some factors that impact our lives as well as our children's lives that I thought that it would be, helpful for us to actually understand and know what issues our children could face, what we could face, because social determinant of health factors are those factors that impact our health, whether they're at home, work, play, whether we're at church, but the factors that impact our lives and that we, impact. And when I say impact, negatively impact. And there are a couple of them, but for tonight's purposes, we'll be covering one, especially with our children as our adults in mind. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do what I always do, sit back and become a student for the night as we listen to our presenter as she gives us information that we all need to know. So, Dr. Rodgers, please take the mic and go ahead and introduce yourself, and you can begin whenever you feel like it with your presentation.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm not going to introduce myself any further than what you have discussed, but I will be talking about environmental social determinants of health. Hopefully, after this presentation, you'll be able to name 3 environments that might negatively affect a child or adult, and you'll be able to list environments that can affect the health of the child. So many people in the United States live in neighborhoods with high rates of violence, unsafe air or water, and other health issues and safety risks. Racial and ethnic minorities and people with low incomes are more likely to live in places with these risks. In addition, some people are exposed to things at work and at school that can harm their health. So let's first start by defining environment. Environment is the surrounding or conditions where a person lives or operates. A healthy environment is vital to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. So let's talk about stats in the Americas. And when I say the Americas, I'm talking about North and South Americas. 13% of death in the Americas are attributed to environmental risks. 320,000 deaths in the Americas are attributed to air pollution. 15 million still practice open defecation. This can cause environmental problems. 1.5 million deaths are attributed to chemical exposures. More than 80,000 people are still using polluting household fuels. Now, this includes coal, charcoal, animal dung, and wood. Air pollution kills over 7 million people worldwide. Close to 63 million people in the US do not have access to clean water. And when you think about the US being one of the richest continents within the world, You wouldn't think that 63 million people do not have access to clean water. Now, two new cars hit the road every second. This contributes to air pollution. 8 to 10% of all US fires are caused by discarded cigarettes. 85% of textiles end up in dumps. And you have noticed over the news how dumps end up becoming fires or causing explosions, which contribute to air pollution. So I'm going to talk about our community. And our slides are a little bit different, but I'm going to first talk about the community. There we go. And how the environment affects our communities. We all want our children to thrive where they live, learn, and play. But everything unsafe to touch, breathe, or swallow affects children more than adults because pound for pound, their contact with harmful chemicals is greater. Therefore, children are more likely to have health problems triggered by exposure to harmful environmental factors. Asthma is triggered by air pollution. Dangerous examples of air pollution include car and truck exhaust. People who live close to interstates have more asthma because of the exhaust fumes that float into the community. And then there are natural air pollutants as well. For instance, pollens and moles are more often linked with asthma and allergy in children. Air pollution can harm more than just lungs.
Dr.
Research,
Rodgers, for what? Dr. Rodgers, Dr. Rodgers,
yeah,
Dr. Rodgers, can you go back because we lost the sound? Can you go back to what you were saying just a few minutes ago and repeat that, please?
which part? You want me to start?
Before I stopped you.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can, that's nice.
Okay. Many natural air pollutants can cause health concerns. Pollen and mold are often linked with asthma and allergies. Air pollution can harm more than just lungs. Research shows that high air pollution can cause more miscarriages. Prenatal exposure to air pollution was associated with changes in a child's brain. And then there are exposures to chemicals. These can affect health. Chemicals exist in the ambient world as well as synthetic chemicals that are used in industrial processes. Autism is a condition marked by difficulty interacting with other people. Certain genetic combined with exposure to air pollution during pregnancy is linked to increased chance of autism. Pregnant mothers exposed to pesticides also have a higher chance of having a child with autism. We also on the news on April 29th, 40 elementary students in Autauga County had facial swelling and watery eyes due to a chemical leak as a chemical truck passed by the Pine Level Elementary School as children played outside. Chemicals such as arsenic occurs naturally in the soil and groundwater. It is also a product seen in pesticides and wood preservative. Research shows that early life exposure to arsenic leads to decreases in IQ and can cause immune deficiency. And then there's climate change. Climate change increases the frequency of natural disasters. This has a ravenous effect on homes and community and sometimes result in loss of life. This includes wildfires, hurricanes, cyclones, droughts, tornadoes. Substandard homes are less likely to stand up to a tornado or hurricane. Substandard homes are often seen in our lower economic neighborhoods. Smoke from wildfires cause respiratory problems in adults and children. And then there are harmful microbes. These are pathogens and germs that can infect children, adults, and cause illness. Eating is one of the primary ways in which humans can contract diseases caused by microbes. One example is food poisoning caused by E. coli. This bacteria is found naturally in the environment and in the soil. But this E. coli can cause respiratory illness, urinary tract infections, and other health effects. It also can lead to sepsis and death in adults and children. Today, approximately 70 to 80% of all rural households in Lowndes County and other counties in the Black Belt have failing or non-existent waste water systems. This leads to more bacteria within the soil and can cause problems. Lack of access to care is an environmental factor as well. This contributes to overall poor health outcomes. Lack of clinics providing care leads to lack of primary care for children. This includes their immunizations. Infrastructure issues, poorly maintained roads increase the risk of car accidents. Trains often pass through lower economic neighborhoods. And in emergencies, it's often difficult to get to hospitals because there's a train on the track. A number of factors can contribute to poor water quality. This include industrial waste and pollution, lack of access to proper water treatment, and outdated plumbing. Lack of access to clean water due to plumbing issues are found in poor communities. We saw this recently in Jackson, Mississippi, and we also saw it in Flint, Michigan. Lead is often found in old plumbing pipes or old peeling paint and can cause permanent cognitive and health damage. Even low levels of lead in children's blood is associated with behavioral problems, delayed puberty, decreased hearing, and low IQ, and also lower growth velocity. Now, when you think about low IQ, how can you get out of poverty if you can't pass your grades in school? You can't get the best jobs. So it keeps you in poverty. If you don't have the appropriate job, you can't get insurance. So this is a determinant of health. According to data, more than 100 illnesses and injuries can be directly linked to the environmental health concerns. Often these issues have greater impact on communities that are poor and already have significant health vulnerabilities. I've only touched on a few of the environmental issues in the community and neighborhood. So let's talk a little bit about work and school.
Now, before we talk about work and school, Dr. Rodgers, can you just give the patients and the parents of the patients who have the young children that are susceptible to picking up environmental concerns as they're out playing during the summertime? Is there something that they can proactively do to assist with making sure that their children have access to cleaner air or cleaner environmental factors? Is there something that they could either do at home or, when they go out? Is there something that they can do?
And, I'm going to talk about mediation within the home uh, further along in the
Okay.
presentation. But
Okay.
when you send your children out to community areas, make sure it is smoke free. And then look to see if it's a high pollen count that day or if the heat is going to be excessively high. You don't want to send your children out on those particular days.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, and well, I have another question in reference to that. And that's for everyone. So I'm taking it would be especially meaningful or impactful to parents or to our underserved and our marginalized communities because they have a higher tendency to pick up those issues, those environmental issues. So if it's really hot outside, those are things that they could proactively, well, if I'm correct, those are things that they could proactively do during the summer months or during the warmer months, correct?
Correct. And if you know that your particular area has higher pollutants in the air, it is good to talk to your local officials to see if you can get that changed, because often it's the industries in that area. Those industries need to be checked to make sure they're not putting excessive pollutants into the air. So we
Okay,
have to
thank you.
become involved citizens. We have to involve our local, state, and federal levels at all points.
Thank you very much.
Was that helpful?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the work environment. This is also can be applied to schools. A hostile work environment is one where an employee feels uncomfortable, scared, intimidated in their place of employment due to unwelcome or offensive behaviors of a supervisor, manager, coworker, or any person in the workplace. And in the schools, this could be a teacher or a classmate. And the behaviors include harassment, intimidation, aggression, bullying, and some others effects. But it has an effect on your health. You can end up with headaches, migraines, sleeplessness, mental health issues, stress, full body tension, and high blood pressure. So, what do you do about that? You talk to management. If it's your manager, go above that individual to let human, or you may have to go to human resources to let them know what they're doing to employees within that organization. If you do not get any help, your health is more important. You may have to consider looking for another job if your job is that toxic and causing you to have these issues. Now, this can occur in school as well. A lot of times when you see a teen that refuses to go to school, there may be a number of problems. Maybe bullying and maybe sexual harassment from another student, and maybe acute stress disorder. As we know, with all the mass shooting that has occurred in the schools, a lot of kids are experiencing PTSD. And there may be family problems at home why they do not want to go to school. So, warning signs that a parent may notice: the child may have trouble getting out of bed, may not want to go to school, they change the way they go to school, or they may become frightened about walking to school. There's maybe a change in sleeping or eating patterns, frequent tears. You may notice some unusual bruises, cuts, or scratches. And a lot of times with kids, the way they express their anxiety is always with, "Mommy, my tummy hurts, my tummy hurts." And if you can't find a reason for that, it may be just anxiety. But if the students are asking for extra money or extra food or come home hungry, it may be that a child is stealing their money, maybe stealing their food. And sometimes there is just an unwillingness to discuss these things at home.
And what is important to note is that when you're saying these things, some people might be like, okay, but how does that in fact, how does that, what does that have to do with the environment? There's all different types of environmental issues, and your child's health and how they act, even your health and how you act when you're around a hostile environment or unsafe environment, it all boils down to the same thing. It's all a negative impact of that social determinants of health issue that's related to the environment. They're all environmental issues. So it doesn't just mean, oh, well, I'm drinking clean water or dirty water or I live in a dirty area. There are so many important facts of the environment that we have to keep it in mind, and we have to push for others to understand and others to realize that what's going on and what they're seeing, even though it might not be physical, even though it might not be a physical presence, it's still a part of the environmental factor.
Yes, and it affects the emotional health of individuals. So if your child is missing a whole lot of school, that means you may be missing school too. If you're missing school because your child is missing school, you're having non-productive days at work. This can affect you economically, and this in turn can affect how well you can get out of poverty, how well your child can get out of poverty, how well you can make the money that you need for your family. And some places of employment will fire you if you miss so many days of school, whether it's related to your child's illness or not. And so in the long run, you have emotional health problems, your child has emotional health problems related to the environment that your child was in. So the biggest problem that you see, though, in school is usually bullying. And 20% of children 12 to 18 report being bullied. That's 1 of 5 students. 15% of the students reported they had rumors about them. About 14% of students said they were made fun of. 6% of students were excluded from activities. 5% were pushed, shoved, tripped, or spit on. 4% of students were threatened and harmed. And 2% of students tried to make them do things that they did not want to do. And then some students had their property destroyed. But what does a parent do? The parent, every teenager complains about not wanting to go to school now and then, but when a teen refuses to go to school every day, day on end, it's essential to uncover the cause of the school refusal. Instead of figuring out how to force a teenager to go to school, parents should try to understand why their child didn't want to go to school and help them address this. The first step is to identify the root cause, be compassionate, understanding, patient, listening. Subsequently, the school and the family should explore solutions. The family may need to meet with the school guidance counselor to solve the problems. The team may be switched to another class if they're struggling with a teacher or other students. The student may need to provide, the school may need to provide additional supervising if there's a bullying problem. But the teen refusal to go to school may be beyond the scope of a school staff. So they may need to see a mental health professional because they may be suffering with depression or anxiety. So these are all health issues that can come from a toxic environment, whether at home or at work. So now we're in the home. Is your home making you sick? So these are some symptoms or sick house syndrome. If you and also be cognizant that this can also happen at school. So it may be sick home, it could be sick school syndromes. So if you notice that when you're at home, headaches, eye irritation, nose irritation, sore throat, skin rashes, chronic fatigue, congestion, dizziness occurs when you're in that environment. It also can occur in that environment in school. But particularly eye irritation, nose irritation, sore throat, skin rashes, congestion are all related to asthma. So there are possible causes. It could be mold, could be pet dander. If you notice that a child is sneezing or coughing whenever they're around the dog, a cat, you may need to consider getting rid of the dog or cat. Pests, cockroaches, rodents are dangerous in the home and can cause these symptoms. Dust mites are invisible to the eye, but can cause problems for those who are allergic or have allergies. Asbestos in the home can cause problems. Tobacco smoke, I cannot say that enough. Cigarette smoking within the home. And then there are VOCs. So VOCs are chemical vapors that come from household items, such as cleaning agents, deodorants, air fresheners, perfumes, paints, nail polish. Clorox can make you have all of those symptoms if it's in the home. I know if I'm around a whole lot of Clorox, my eyes will water. I will have coughing spells. It can trigger an asthma attack. So if you know your child has asthma and you like cleaning with Clorox, you would do that when the child was not at home. And then you would try to open doors and windows to get rid of those fumes before that child comes home. And I know at the hospital that I used to work, employees could not wear perfume because perfume could cause or trigger an asthma attack. And we had several children who were coming for checkup and they ended up on the elevator with somebody who has some perfume on. And by the time they got to the clinic, they were in a full-blown asthma attack. So it's important as a family member to visually inspect your home. If you have pests, try to get rid of those. Look in your kitchen around the hydrant, look in your bathroom, look at your walls, looking for mold. And then determine if your pets are a problem. Get rid of the clutter in your home. Clutter will collect dust. Dust can cause problems for anybody who has allergies. And then environmental tobacco smoke is not good for anyone. There is no safe level of tobacco in anybody's home. And that is whether it's an e-cigarette or whether it's a smoking type cigarette. And then strong odors determine if these are causing issues with your family members. And then education, pest management, smoke-free housing. If your house, if you're renting from someone, before you move in, you want to make sure that that home is mediated of pests and housing. And then if you have someone in your home that smoke, have them smoke outside and never smoke in the home. If for children and particularly, if they go outside to smoke, they need to put on a covering over their clothing and remove that clothing, that covering when they come back inside. And then safe cleaning methods. I don't think I'm going to talk about asthma, but I will say this. If you're living in a house with mold and that child has been exposed to that since infancy, they're more likely to develop asthma by the age of 7. And then there's a triad that goes with asthma, eczema, allergic rhinitis, and asthma. Those three things often can be seen together and caused by allergens in the house or home. So, environmental mediation, dust-proof bedding, but it's more important to do the dust-proof uh, encasement on the pillow. Your trash cans should have lids so it won't attract um, bugs and rodents, sticky traps for cockroaches, storage bins for your clutter with a top on it. Then advocate with the landlord if you do not own your home to have your home inspected. Educate them about someone who may have respiratory problems related to dust or pests that may be around the home. Now, a little bit about tobacco smoke. Tobacco is a health danger. It is the number one cause of death and preventable to disease. Safe 70% of smokers say they would like to quit, but they can't. 9 of 10 current smokers started by the age of 18. So smoking is a childhood problem. Now, currently, we see a lot of middle-aged children and high school children that do not want to smoke cigarettes, but they are experimenting with e-cigarettes. So e-cigarettes have a tendency to have more nicotine than the cigarettes. So the problem with tobacco is addictive because of the nicotine and its condition factors, genetics, as well as social, environmental factors to keep somebody to want to smoke. So how do you know if you're addicted? Well, if you wake up first thing in the morning and you have to have a cigarette within 15 to 20 minutes after waking up, you're addicted. If you want to smoke while you're sick, you are addicted. So smoking leads to disease and disability. More than 16 million Americans are living with a disease caused by smoking. Smoking causes cancer, heart disease, stroke, lung diseases, diabetes, COPD. For males, smoking is known to cause erectile dysfunction. Now there's secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke is a combination of smoke coming from a lit cigarette and that which is exhaled by the smoker. There are 69 causing agents and chemical compounds in the smoke. But let me tell you, there are more than 600 chemicals in one cigarette. And once you light that cigarette, it becomes more than 7,000 chemicals that are being released. Ask your community, is it 100% smoke free? Is the school smoke free? Is where your child goes to the community centers, is it smoke free? All of those need to be smoke free. There is no safe level of secondhand smoke either. Now, secondhand smoke is not just a personal issue, it's an issue around everybody else. Secondhand smoke kills more than 41,000 non-smokers every year. They end up with cancer also, and they never smoked a cigarette. In children, those who are around smokers, they're more likely to smoke. But smoking increases low birth weight. It causes sudden infant death, causes asthma, causes ear infection, and respiratory infections in children of smokers. And then let me just mention one more thing. Third hand smoke. That is the smoke that is left behind. It leaves toxic, harmful chemicals that's left in the walls, is left in the upholstery on your couches and in your car and in your hair, in the child's hair. So this is third hand smoke that's left behind. And if you go in the house of a smoker, you see the yellow walls. All of that is chemicals over the walls.
Wow. You just brought up something that, like I said, I'm sitting here learning, and I'm sure the people that will be watching this later, or if they're watching it now, are learning too. You just brought up something. So the yellow walls are all chemicals that have been left behind by people that have been smoking. And so how many, like you just said, secondhand smoke, there's 600 that's released, but there's 7,000 that they can they can get. With third hand smoke, what is the relative, like, is that number still at high?
Yes, that number. Well, the 7,000 is from the lit cigarettes still
Okay.
being lit, but those chemicals, like the 69 with
Mm-hmm.
um, the secondhand smoke, it
Mm-hmm.
is still there in your carpet, it's in your upholstery. And I don't have the exact number for
Mm-hmm.
that, but I can look it up and try to find it for you.
Okay.
But all of it is cancer causing.
Okay.
So, what I have tried to do is talk about the social, how environment impacts the social determinants of health negatively. I try to show it in your community and in the neighborhood, at work and school, as well as in your home. Just to review, social determinants of health are conditions in the environment in which people are born, live, learn, work, play, worship that can affect quality of life outcomes and risk. Interventions and social changes at the local, state, and federal level can help reduce environmental health and safety risk and promote health. And a lot of times we have to push our governmental officials. If you remember the dump that caught fire in St. Clair County, it wasn't until people started complaining and pushing and reported that people were getting sick that the local government decided to do something. But it took the citizens to push that issue.
Well, and that's exactly why the three pillars of the C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz Foundation are education, empowerment, and engagement. You cannot be empowered and you cannot be engaged if you are first not educated on the issues. Once you become educated and you start hearing things and seeing things, you're like, I can't believe they did that. A patient uprising will occur, and that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to all have to learn as much as we can learn and try our darndest to pass it on to others so that they learn as well. Carolyn Coleman said, "Thank you, Dr. Rodgers." I say thank you, Dr. Rodgers, because I'm sure you're busy and you have other things that you could be doing. But you say, you know what, Sandra, I could do this. And you, as nervous and as worried as you was, I'm like, you're going to be just fine because this is your passion. And when you're doing something that's your passion, you do well at what you're doing. And the information just flows because you want to share it with everyone. So, on behalf of the C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz Foundation and myself, I just want to say thank you very, very much for being a vital part of tonight's conversation. And if there's anything else that you'd like to say before we say goodnight, you can go ahead and say it.
Well, let me just say one thing about school. Visit the school often. Know what the environment at school looks like. Is the school dirty? Do you see pets running around? And you need to complain about that if you see that.
And thank you very much. And Dr. Coleman, Dr. Rodgers, if you do not mind, I'm actually putting together a event in October, a community event in October. If you can share those slides with me, I would love to have that on the table so that as we have patients coming in, they can take a look at it and get a little bit better understanding about what is considered to be an environmental risk factor.
I will be glad to do that. Thank you
Thank
for inviting me.
Thank you so much for taking part. We certainly do appreciate it. You have the rest of a good night.
Thank you.